Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, checking out the Saturday race of the day. It is the Grade 1 Belmont Oaks Invitational Race 11 at Saratoga on this 4th of July week. And speaking of the 4th of July weekend, you do want to check out the sale we've got going on at DRF.com. You can save 15% on almost everything in the DRF shop. Just go to shop.drf.com and use that coupon code July15 off, especially when you're picking up PPs at this time of year, because there's a lot of great racing awaiting for you later in the summer. So if you're going to make a past performance purchase, do it this weekend to take advantage of that 15% off sale. Mike, Grade 1 Belmont Oaks, we've got a field of 7 lined up, and maybe the best 3-year-old filly in the country in this race, the number 7 Nitrogen. Remains to be seen if she'll prove it on dirt later in the season, but on turf, no one's been any match for her so far this year.
Just been really, really good in all of her races this year. They even tried to make her run on a different surface last time. It didn't matter. She absolutely galloped with a 91 buyer. I mean, she's got to go 9 furlongs for the first time here, David. I don't think that's going to trip her up. She's way the horse to beat.
It's an interesting field. As you can see from the morning line, there's nobody in this race that's totally overmatched, but they're all going to have to up their game a little bit if they're going to take down this formidable-looking favorite. And if you want to handicap this particular race along with Mike and me, you can get free past performances for the Belmont Oaks and every single DRF race of the day. Just create a free account at DRF.com. Go over to that race of the day page. You can access free classic, formulator, and Timeform US performances for all races of the day, including this Grade 1 Belmont Oaks. And speaking of those Timeform US PPs, which you can access with that race of the day access, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Belmont Oaks, Mike. And I kind of see it lining up exactly the way it looks on the pace projector, where Opulent Restraint likely to go to the lead. She had success doing that last time, and Totally Justified seems like the most logical presser. And we'll see how much ground Nitrogen can save from an outside post, but I wouldn't be too concerned about it.
Yeah, it's only post 7 here. It's not like she's hung out very wide in this race with such a short field. I'm with you. I feel like this is probably the most likely pace scenario for this race. The 2 and the 3 go forward. Nitrogen, tactical horse. It doesn't seem like she's going to, take too much heat here from the outside post.
Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1 Warming, a horse who began her career in sprint races. She won her debut going 6 furlongs last summer, was off for a long time. Mike, she had quite a trip off the layoff and the Take the A Trade 2 back. And then she ran in this race where, again, not an ideal trip, but she somehow still is able to get the job done. And Mike, I'm sure you watched this replay with the race call, and the race caller actually counted her out at mid-stretch, making a belated run, but she somehow gets there in the end. Now, she was beating a much weaker field that day than she's going to face here, but seems like she's coming in here still with nothing but upside.
Yeah, she can run. Just you can go back and watch any one of her 3 starts so far. She can run, and I know they started her out sprinting, and that's all well and good. Her race 2 starts back is really underrated, and yeah, weaker field last time, but she had enough trouble in there. That's the kind of trip that gets horses beat all the time. And for her to put in the run that she put in there to close that thing down, just sort of confirmed maybe that you were right when you thought she had potential in her first 2 career starts. She's good. She's stepping way up in class here. This is not an easy race for her, but she deserves the chance.
Yeah, actually, before he picked up that replay at the quarter pole, she got completely steadied on the far turn, lost momentum, had to go wide to make that run. It was impressive last time. We'll see if she can do it against a tougher field here. The number 2 Opulent Restraint is one of 2 Chad Brown runners in this race, and his pair have completely opposite running styles, with Opulent Restraint being the one that's likely to go to the lead in this spot, Mike. And we'll take a look at her most recent start, the Memories of Silver. And yeah, she gets run down at the end, but she gets defeated by a pretty good horse in Laurelin, who would have been interesting if she participated in this race. She went to the Penn Mile and Penn Oaks, I should say, and easily won that last weekend. But Opulent Restraint, she doesn't go down without a fight. She battles back all the way to the wire, going the 1 mile distance here. Are you a little bit concerned about her getting the extra furlong to go 9 furlongs?
I am. I definitely, you have to be concerned about it. I still think it's fair to say that race we just watched there is the best race that she's run so far.
Yeah.
And listen, she was, to me, she just wasn't sort of the finished article as a 2-year-old. I think you could tell she had talent, but she was still a little green, had some growing up and some learning to do. I do feel like she's moved forward now as a 3-year-old. We'll see if she gets the distance here, and we'll see, how this pace plays out. I think she's good enough to win this race, David, but I am concerned about the distance.
The horse who figures to be pressing Opulent Restraint early is the number 3, Totally Justified, a horse who showed talent during her 2-year-old season. She actually earned a stakes victory at Saratoga last summer in the PG Johnson, where she fended off Virgin Colada, who we'll get to in just a little bit. Went off form a little bit. Mike didn't run her best race in the Breeders' Cup, but also got an interesting trip that day. Things did not quite work out for her in that spot, and didn't run well behind Nitrogen off the layoff in the Appalachian. I guess you could say in retrospect, she probably needed that race off the long layoff because she ran way better last time in the Grade 3 Regret, where we talked about a horse who was setting the pace in there with regard to another stakes race, the Wild Applause, earlier in the week. And that Marcassi trainee, the pace really took its toll on her as she faded away, but Totally Justified was the one that was applying pressure to that pace setter all the way around the far turn. She took over an upper stretch, and she did not go down without a fight when Fionn challenged her in the late stages. I thought that was a big step forward for her, and she does feel like one that is really suited by this 9 furlong distance.
I'll agree with that. It was nice to see her, sort of rebound last time and just run a way better race. You're right. You probably maybe a little too hard on her for the Appalachian off the layoff, but she ran well last time. I could go either way on her in this race, David. I do think there's a good trip coming. I do think the distance is okay for her. I like her last race enough to leave her open, but I still wonder how good she is. I know that she won a stakes race and lost got beat a nose in a Grade 2 last year. I didn't really love her as a 2-year-old. So I don't know. I want to wait and see what kind of price she is.
Trip is going to be key for the number 4 Virgin Colada because she just doesn't have much early speed at all. She is the Chad Brown trained uncoupled stablemate to Opulent Restraint, and she might need some help from that one if she's going to win this race because she just drops way back early in her races, and she does finish strongly every time, Mike, but sometimes leaves herself with too much to do. And actually, that's been the case in every start since she won her debut up at Saratoga last summer. I liked the way that she was picking up ground at the end of the Memories of Silver last time, but she couldn't get there that day, and now she's facing a tougher field.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way about her. I mean, I thought she was okay as a 2-year-old anyway. She was very disappointing at the Breeders' Cup, though. And so I was sort of interested to see what she would do off the layoff. And I actually thought she ran really well in the Memories of Silver. I don't know if it's enough to get me to want to bet her in here, but that was a real step in the right direction, I thought.
Fionn, the number 5, has not done much wrong in her career. She's won 4 of 6 turf starts, 4 of her last 5. Her one loss came in a race that was won by Nitrogen, so we probably shouldn't hold that against her too much. And she got back to the winner's circle last time going this distance in the Grade 3 Regret, the race we just talked about with for Totally Justified. But Mike, when I watched that race, I thought that things really worked out for Fionn. She was towards the back of the pack behind a pace that went too quick up front, and she popped out at the top of the stretch, was the one who was able to make the last move in a race that started to fall apart at the end. So to me, that was the time to have her. And now landing in here in a race where the pace looks a little bit more murky, I'm not sure it's going to work out as well for her.
Exactly. And she's not, it doesn't feel like she's going to be a great price in here either. So I guess we'll see how it all plays out. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that, David. She ran fine last time. I thought she took advantage a little bit and didn't necessarily want to bet her back against this field.
How do we evaluate the number 6 Mayday Ready? Because she was just as good as any of these during her 2-year-old season. Actually, the top finisher of all those coming out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf last year. I think there were 4 of them in this field. She was second in that spot behind Lake Victoria. They tried to go overseas to Japan for a Grade 1 race at the end of last year. That's tough to do with a horse at any age, especially a 2-year-old. It did not work out at all. They came back off the layoff in the Wonder again. Rained off the turf. They kept her in anyway. Maybe that just said she needed the start. I mean, I guess you could make the case that she's a little dirtied up off those last 2 efforts. And if she gets back to her 2-year-old form, she's not out of it.
I agree. I mean, I think that's probably the right way to look at her too. If she's, 10 to 1, as your morning line has her, David, she's that kind of price. I think you're just supposed to look at her exactly that way. She was really good last year as a turf horse, and I don't see why you would care about the race in Japan, and I don't see why you would care about the Wonder again. If you like her, you're probably supposed to bet her here.
And then rounding out the field is the heavy favorite of this race, the number 7 Nitrogen. I mentioned earlier she might be the top 3-year-old filly in the country, Mike. I mean, she hasn't had that Grade 1 victory yet, but I mean, she's 5 for 5 this year. She's won all stakes race. It just continues to step up in class. And it seems like with each victory, she gets more dominant than the last one. And that was the case here in the Wonder again, even though she was doing it on a different surface, dirt. And obviously, she wasn't facing anybody else with durability at this race. So the margin of victory doesn't mean a whole lot, but this was a fast race on the clock, actually the top buyer speed figure of her career. I mean, it just proves that she is razor sharp right now, and it doesn't seem like you have to be too concerned about trip with her.
Yeah, I think that's the real thing that she has going for her. And I also don't feel like you have to worry about distance with her either. I mean, some of these other horses, maybe not with her. I feel like that's not going to trip her up. Cassie he runs his horses anyway. He comes right back in this race after having to run her on dirt last time. Every one of her starts this year probably makes her too good for these horses. I don't know, man. I don't really have a lot to say about her. She's going to be a short price, and she should be.
Yeah, you'd be tempted to say that maybe at some point the workload is going to take its toll on her, but it hasn't really showed up in her performances yet because she just keeps getting better and better, and she's definitely way the horse to beat in this Belmont Oaks. But Mike, I think we're both going to take shots against her. Where did you land?
I'm not going to have a lot of money in against the favorite here, but I do want to try Warming here. I feel like she still has to be a good price stepping in against this field because this is a good field, but I think she fits right in here. I like every one of her races. I'm glad they're giving her a shot here. She'll be a price. I'll bet her.
And I was really taken with the last performance of the number 3, totally justified given the way that pace unfolded. I think she's going to be sitting a very good trip in here, right on top of a pace that might be pretty moderate. And I always thought last year she was a horse that would really get better as the distances got longer. So maybe we can prove that out going the 9 furlong distance on Saturday. 3-7-1-4 for me and 1-7-2-6 for Mike in the Grade 1 Belmont Oaks Invitational Race 11 at Saratoga. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.